in the same room, obviously. We're doing this remotely as we've been doing 9 months, almost 9 months. Yeah, almost 9 months, right?
Yeah.
End of March. Yeah, it's hard to believe we're still doing this, but hey, what are you going to do? It is what it is. It's 2020. All right, so we're going to do our pick four, and then we're going to have some other sports topics to discuss. So before we get started, we'll update the records. We have a tie for first place. Robert and Justin are tied 30 and 21 each. We have a push in there that we don't really count, but that's why we have an odd number. And then yours truly is nipping at the heels, 28 and 23. So, we're hanging in there. So, all right, our first game. This is, and Justin picked these games, is my Miami Dolphins at home, 7.5-point underdogs, the Kansas City Chiefs. Dolphins looked horrible in the first half against the Bengals on offense. They only had 2 field goals, couldn't get anything going. Changeli goes with the no huddle, hurry up offense in the second half. Tua gets going. Dolphins win the game 19-7. Dolphins have only allowed 10 points in the last 2 games combined, 3 to the Jets and 7 to the Bengals. And the Bengals touchdown came on a broken play, really. So they almost pitched a shutout. So, but obviously the Chiefs are not the Jets or the Bengals, not even close. So the Dolphins, can they beat the Chiefs? If everything goes right for them, I think they have a chance to beat the Chiefs. But I'm a realist. I think they'll lose, but I think they'll cover 7.5. I think they're going to lose by 3 or 4 points. Look at Robert. Well, I'm telling you, the Dolphins defense has been very good lately. They did a great job on the Rams. They did a solid job on the Cardinals. And I understand the Chiefs are the best offense in the NFL, but I'm telling you, this defense is pretty good. And yeah, they're not going to shut down the Chiefs. Like, the Chiefs are going to score at least 24, 27 points. The question is, can the Dolphins keep up with them? That's the thing. So I think the Dolphins defense can do enough to hang in there, and the Dolphins at least get a cover, lose a close game, unfortunately. So that's if Tua can get this offense going again. We'll see how it goes. But I was very encouraged. Mike Gesicki had 9 receptions last week, a career high. So Tua went to him for the first time. And Myles Gaskin's back too, which is huge for the Dolphins because they really have no running game. Gaskin had 90 yards rushing last week, and he had a very important play action pass reception too. So that helps out Miami's offense. So I think the Dolphins can cover, but the Chiefs are going to win a close one. Robert?
Well, the artist formerly known as the top 5, as a top 5 team in the league, really didn't impress against the Bengals. I mean, I guess they won by double digits. I don't know if that's okay with you, Chris, but yes, the defense did play well. But I mean, when you look at the Dolphins' record over the last 3 weeks, I mean, when is the offense going to show up? You've got 52 total points in 3 games. Going up against the Chiefs, you're going to need to score more than that to win a game. So I think, to your point, Chris, about Tua and the offense showing up is exactly right, especially in a game like this. I think the Chiefs are just too good. Chiefs defense is underrated. A lot of focus on Mahomes and that offense. But the defense is pretty solid too. And, if the Dolphins offense can't get anything going, then they're in trouble. And look, I'm sure that the Dolphins defense is great. They did lose to the Bills and gave up 31 points earlier this year.
That was a long time ago.
Just saying, hey, it was this season. It wasn't,
No, that's right. But
it wasn't, it wasn't week 17 of the 2019 season. It wasn't 2018. It was this season. Same players, whatever.
Not the same players. Here's the thing. I
we let you go on about your Dolphins. I'm just going on about my opinion. I really don't care about your bum team.
Okay. Boy. Listen to this guy.
My prediction. You want my prediction? The Chiefs will win and cover. That's the point.
All right. What I was trying to say before you kept cutting me off is that Byron Jones did not play, or at least he did not finish that game. He went out pretty early in that game. The Dolphins' defense is a lot different with Byron Jones. When you have Xavier Howard, who leads the NFL with 8 interceptions, okay, who is a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year, okay, 8 picks, okay. He's intercepted a pass in 4 straight games. Okay. So all I'm saying is when the Bills do play the Dolphins later on in week 17, it's going to be a different defense than what you faced in week 2. All right. All right.
Well,
Justin,
yeah, let's talk about, four straight games. Yeah, he's intercepted a rookie quarterback, some bum that the Broncos play,
Okay.
the Jets and the Bengals. Wow, what
Well,
talent. Let's now that the Dolphins are finally
picks.
entering a stretch of the season where they're playing some real teams, we'll see how this defense does.
He's got 8 picks this season. He's got the most interceptions the last 3 years in the NFL, considering he missed most of the 2018 season. So, all right, go ahead and tell me Xavier Howard isn't that great a player, but whatever. All right, go ahead, Justin.
I didn't say that. I was just saying, when you get 4 picks against, bum teams, good job. Nice participation trophy.
Oh, go ahead, Justin.
Is your guys' pissing contest over? I mean, last I checked, we were talking about the Dolphins and Chiefs, not
Yeah, I know.
the Dolphins and Bills.
Well,
okay.
It's an
We
appetizer for week 17, obviously, but go ahead.
Okay. But hey, I'm happy to finally be able to chime into this show. Listen, the Chiefs, Chris, I do take exception to your little comment there. You said the Chiefs are the best offense in football based on points per game, which is what decides games and whatnot. They are not the best offense in football. So I just want to throw that out there. They are a very good offense.
Green Bay's better. Let me guess. Green Bay's better, right?
Well, of course. Hey, if you're gonna give opinions, you might as well get the facts straight. The Chiefs do not have the best offense in football. Now that we have that out of the way, the Chiefs have won 7 games in a row. By many, they are considered the best team in football. But their last 4 games, all wins, have been 1-score games. Here's how the Chiefs have fared over the last month. Win over the Panthers, 33-31. Well, the Panthers aren't very good. A 35-31 win over the Raiders that they were losing in the last couple minutes. They came back and won that one. A 27-24 win over the Buccaneers. That one, that score's a little deceiving. They kicked the Bucs' butt, and the Buccaneers kind of backdoor covered there. And then last week, 22-16 against a pretty porous Broncos team. So this is not a Chiefs team that is blowing teams out. They're playing well late. But, against the spread, they're 6-6 this year. And there's an old saying, good teams win, great teams cover. By that standard, the Chiefs are not a great team. They're an average team. Now, I will say, Chris's Dolphins, I think that they are the kind of team that can give the Chiefs trouble because of their defense. Brian Flores comes from the Bill Belichick tree. No one has had more success against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes than Bill Belichick. I think Flores knows a thing or two about how to play that offense. So I think the Dolphins can keep the Chiefs from scoring 30 points. And then it just comes down to, in terms of who's going to win against the spread. Can the Dolphins get to 24? I'm not as confident that they can, but I do expect this to be a closer game. So I'll take the Dolphins to cover the 7. It was a 7-point spread, not 7.5. Chris, I sent updated lines. Either way, I think the Dolphins will cover, but the Chiefs will win.
Wow, very interesting. All right, our next game, the Minnesota Vikings at the Tampa Bay Bucks. The Bucks are 6.5-point favorites. Vikings have been hot, right, Justin? I mean, you're the NFC North expert. They won what, 5 in a row?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yes, and the Bucks are 7-5.
Overtime to beat the Jaguars, but
yes. And the Bucks are 7-5. You can almost call it a disappointing 7-5. So, Bucks 6.5-point favorites. The Vikings, they're due for a letdown. Kirk Cousins is due for one of those games where he throws a clunker. I like the Bucks to win and cover the 6.5. Go ahead, Justin.
I hope you guys can see me. My internet's kind of crapping out here. The Vikings, they started off, I think, 1-4, or maybe 1-5, and they've been one of the better teams in the NFC lately. I like the Vikings. They're a team I actually don't want the Packers to play in the playoffs. I think they have, as long as Kirk Cousins doesn't throw a stinker, which obviously has a decent likelihood of happening here and there. They have a good running game. They can play that kind of ball control offense that keeps the ball out of the hands of these great offenses that they're likely to play. I think they're a dangerous team, and their defense is improving by the week. So the Buccaneers, they're kind of falling apart here over the last month. I think both these teams are going to get into the playoffs. This is really just going to decide who gets to play the Saints or Packers in the first round, and who gets to play the third seed. So, but I like the Vikings here, especially against the spreads. This should be closer to a pick 'em than anything.
Robert?
Well, and continuing the theme of the day with overrated Florida teams, I will be taking the Vikings to cover in this one. I think the Vikings are, playing pretty well after a slow start to the season. They know that you're probably not going to win the NFC North. The Packers, I think it's fair to say, are running away with it. The best team in football, in my opinion. The Vikings know that they're playing for a wild card spot. And so, this is a game that they need to win to make sure that happens, because the Bucs are in a similar position. The Saints are ahead of them in the division. The Saints have won both games head to head. So the Saints are in the driver's seat, and the Bucs are really playing for one of those three wild card spots. So, it's I think it'll be a close game, but I think the Vikings will cover, and honestly I think the Vikings will win it, just because the Bucs seem to be sliding. Teams have been able to kind of key on Tom Brady's weaknesses. The bag of bones has not been able to throw the ball deep and accurately. He's like Jameis Light these days. I like the Vikings. I think this is a good matchup for them, and they're catching the Bucs at the right time. The Bucs are on a downward slide, so I like them.
All right. Bucks are coming off their bye week, so take that for what you will. So
Sheerism.
Well, you're going to love the next game then. So the Steelers, 1.5 point favorites at Robert's Buffalo Bills. I'm stunned by this. How did this line change? This line had to have changed, right?
It sure did change. Bills are now favored by 2.5.
There we go. I was going to say that was stunning. Obviously, a lot of things have changed since that opening line. And by the way, I didn't get your email with the line changes, so I'm not trying to be ignorant or anything here. But all right, so that makes things a lot different. So both teams coming on short weeks, actually. Both of them played Monday night, so they're both equal in that one. So Steelers coming off their first loss of the season. They blew a 14-0 lead to the Washington football team. The Bills, arguably coming off maybe their best game of the season, at least offensively. I mean, incredible Josh Allen, maybe one of the greatest performances by a Bills quarterback ever. I mean, we're talking even better than Joe Ferguson, and Jim Kelly. So I was going to throw a Kemp in there too, or a LaMonica. But anyways, the Bills are playing great, and I don't see any reason why that would change. I like the Bills to cover 2.5. They just got to win by 3 points. I like the Bills to cover. Steelers have been exposed. Not saying they're frauds, but they're not as good as their record said they were. So I like the Bills to win and cover. Go ahead, Robert.
Well, it's quite a turnaround for you. We'll see what Ritz brings to the table after both of you bums picked the Niners last week. You're reading some good Auburn Crow on Monday night, that's for sure. The Bills have been playing well, and the thing about the Steelers is, and a lot of people pointed this out, but that loss to Washington, I think a lot of people saw that coming. To be honest, the Steelers have not been playing well, and they've won some games. They've had to, they've really shown some grit and toughed it out in games, but they're not like blowing teams away or anything. I mean, that offense is solid. It's not great. And the defense is really the key for them. So we'll see if they can slow down the Bills at all. But the Bills defense has also been picking it up lately too. And I think that will be a big factor in this game if they can limit the Steelers. So yeah, I'm taking the Bills. I'm taking the Bills in another primetime game.
Justin, your pick.
There's a case to be made that the Bills are the second best team in the AFC and that they are better than the Steelers despite the difference in record. Obviously, the Steelers are currently the number one seed. I don't think they'll be the number one seed 4 weeks from now. I don't see, if things shake the Bills' way based on who has to play who the last 4 weeks, the Bills do have an outside shot at that number one seed in a first round bye. They would need a couple things to work out in their favor. Obviously, number one would be beating the Steelers this week. They would need the Chiefs to lose to the Saints in a couple weeks or lose to the Dolphins. I think they're a couple games behind the Chiefs. So they need some help, but the Bills are as dangerous as any team in the conference. The way Josh Allen is playing, for my money, he is the number 3 in the MVP race right now, behind Rodgers, behind Mahomes. And even the games when he's not throwing it at his best. I think against the 49ers, he was lights out with his arm. But what's scary about him is the days when he's not clicking on through the air, he can run it. He's like, think of like Lamar Jackson last year, except better. Any other year, Josh Allen might be the favorite for MVP right now, but he's just unfortunately behind a couple surefire Hall of Famers. So Bills are a good team. I think their defense is starting to round into form after kind of playing down the first couple months of the year. And the Steelers are ripe for the picking. Haven't been impressed with Big Ben. His stats are indicating he's been better than he actually has been. I like the Bills. I think this is a good line. I'm glad the bettors obviously are favoring the Bills as well.
Well, after hearing the barking, I thought you were going to pick the underdog, Justin. All right, our last game, the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. Is this line changed?
No, this one is still Ravens by 1, I believe.
Ravens by 1. Wow. The Ravens looked great last night. I mean, that was a very impressive win over a really bad Dallas team. Lamar Jackson looked like he's recovered from COVID pretty nicely. The Browns, though, it's easy to criticize them when they play a big game. They don't show up. But, this Browns team has really been coming along. And they had a good win against Tennessee. That was not a dog win. Anyway, so I like Cleveland being at home to cover, the win and cover. I think this team is starting to come together nicely. And, the Ravens looked good last week, but short week. And I like Cleveland to beat the Ravens. Justin.
I got to tell you, it was enjoyable looking back at the last week's video and trying to remember who I picked for each game. And basically, I went on like a 5-minute rant about how Baker Mayfield sucks and the Browns aren't going anywhere until they have a real quarterback. And he goes out and throws 4 touchdowns and totally kicks the Titans' butt, especially in the first half. I think the criticisms of Baker are still warranted. People can make excuses for him over the last month, like, oh, the Browns played in some terrible weather games and blah, blah, blah. The fact that they're still able to win regardless of how their quarterback performs, I think is just telling of how kind of indifferent his play is to that team's success. That said, the Browns, I can't believe I'm going to say this, they are a dangerous team. As Chris said, that win over the Titans is no joke. I'm still kind of wondering what the Ravens' identity is. Lamar Jackson, he came back fine. He was good on the ground. I think he still only had like 70 or 80 yards through the air at halftime. They're just the Ravens are a limited team when they have to play uncomfortable. When they are in a close game or if they're behind and they need Lamar to throw the ball, I still think they can be exposed. So the fact that I do think these teams are basically even. I'll take the Browns just because they're the underdog here. I don't feel confident about it. I could see either team win this game. And just one last comment for all the commentary on how the NFC West is the best division in football. No, the AFC North is the best division in football. You got 2, maybe 3 great teams here. This is a fun matchup. I'll take the Browns.
All right, Robert.
Yeah, the Ravens, yeah, they roughed up the Cowboys, but I think that's a game that they were expected to win and expected to win by a healthy margin. This is a different story. The Browns looked good against the Titans. I'm with Justin. I don't think that changes anything about Baker Mayfield. I know that his wife took shots at Stephen A. Smith because Baker actually finally showed up and threw multiple touchdowns in a game. Good for him. Give him a ribbon or something. But I think the Browns are really what the key to that team isn't Baker Mayfield. It's the two-headed monster of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Those two guys are really going to carry this team, and I think that's going to be the difference in this one. I think the Browns will win it, so I am taking them. The Ravens, to me, Justin mentioned this point. They're front runners. They get ahead and they're pretty comfortable ahead, but when they have to play from behind, they don't have that firepower. And it starts with Lamar Jackson, but it goes beyond him too. They don't have the receiving core that can really execute a great passing attack, and so they lean heavily on the run. And I think in a game like this, a game that's expected to be close, I think the Browns will have the advantage and they'll win this one.
All right, so those are our picks. Now we'll go to our takeaways from Week 13. What to look for in Week 14? For me, my Week 13 takeaways. The NFC least, all of a sudden, the Giants and the Washington football team, they're not playing like dogs. They're playing pretty darn good. I mean, the Giants have won, 4 in a row? But going into Seattle, now look, I understand there weren't fans there. I get it. It's not the typical CenturyLink Field, wherever they're calling it now, whatever, the new name is. But that was an impressive win for the Giants. And then, as we've discussed already, the Washington football team going into Pittsburgh and knocking off the Steelers, getting them their first loss. Those are impressive wins. And then all of a sudden, it's the Giants and the Washington football team separating themselves from the Eagles and the Cowboys, where, one of these two teams is going to win the division and get a home playoff game. The Giants-Browns game next week's been flexed to prime time. This is going to be interesting how these two teams play down the stretch because they're getting good. And I think that's going to be fun to watch. One of these two teams, I mean, it could be a 7-9 Giants or Washington team that wins the NFC East, which, you want to see a team at least finish 500, but that'd be a little more respectable than a 6-10 or a 5-11 team winning a division. But all of a sudden, the Giants and Washington are starting to come along. That's my takeaways from last week. What to look for next week? There's certain teams that their seasons have gone off the rails. And I'm thinking about Philadelphia. They're going to be starting Hurts at quarterback instead of Wentz. The Bears are a complete dumpster fire. These are teams that you would say that they're going to be changing head coaches after the season. Would we consider maybe changing coaches or making the changes before the season's over? Will any of these teams decide to get ahead of the hiring curve and make changes like we've already seen with Houston, obviously, and what's the other team that fired their head coach besides Houston, Robert? Wasn't another head coach that got fired besides Houston's? Besides O'Brien? I'm trying. Who else got fired?
The Falcons.
The Falcons, right? That's what I mean.
Dan Quinn, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So I'm just curious. Will we see some other coaching changes before the end of the season when you usually get Black Monday? So, all right, Robert, your takeaways and what to look for.
Yeah, well, just I have a couple points. One, just to piggyback on the NFC East talk. Washington is just a great story. You got Ron Rivera, fighting cancer and still coaching through that. That's a great part of the team story. But also Alex Smith. For Alex Smith, to go through what he went through with that serious leg injury and the infection, and ESPN did a great 1-hour documentary on that, and just what a struggle that was. Kind of capped off in a way, at least for now, with that upset win over the Steelers and ending that undefeated season was a pretty cool moment for both those men. And we'll see what they can do. I think that they really are the best team in the NFC East, which isn't saying much, but I think that they have the talent really to win that division at the end. The thing I really want to talk about here, the takeaway is, Aaron Rodgers throwing his 400th touchdown pass. And, I think people, in this world of, drooling over Mahomes and, you've talked about Tom Brady for 20 years and, you talk about some of these guys, I think Aaron Rodgers is starting to gain a little bit more appreciation as time goes on. And, there's a lot more respect for his game and his ability. And, I think he's the greatest quarterback of all time. And, yes, he's reached this milestone, but it's just one of many. And, he keeps showing again, this is the revenge tour. I've said this before, he's on a tear this year. I think he will be the MVP at the end of the day. And he's got the Packers in a great position to make it back to the Super Bowl. Looking ahead of this week, Chris, that Dolphins-Chiefs game is going to be interesting to me. I think this is the first, real test for this top 5 team of yours. We'll see how they handle it.
Okay. Whoa. I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Top 5 teams. Okay. First of all, I've never said that. Second of all, you're looking at ProFootballTalk.com's rankings where they've got them number 5.
Yes,
which
I'm making fun of it,
right,
obviously.
Which is way too high. And to be honest with you, that's the only outlet that's got the Dolphins that high. The NFL.com website has the Dolphins like number 13 or 14, for Christ's sake. So when you say top 5, okay, I know the tongue may be in the cheek there, but no one thinks the Dolphins are a top 5 team. I think they're not a top 5 team. That being said, I think
let me finish
number 10. Go ahead.
Finish so Ritz can get in.
I want to state that for the record, though.
So this is a big test for them. I'm curious as how they handled it. Any schlub can beat up the Bengals, with a backup quarterback, but let's see how they do against Mahomes and the Chiefs. The Bills were in the midst of this, slide, this 2-game slide. They were coming off the Titans game where they played terrible. And, I thought they played a little bit better against the Chiefs. And, there's definitely, to Ritz's point earlier, I think there's definite signs that the Chiefs aren't as good as they were last year. I think the defense is a little bit better, but I think the offense, teams are kind of picking up on certain things. But, the Chiefs have a lot of weapons to offer. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. They have Le'Veon Bell's their backup now. Just crazy how much talent's on that team. So, this is a real test for the Dolphins. It'll be nice to see if they can compete, because I think that just makes the AFC that much better and much more interesting. I think the AFC really is the superior conference at this point. Plus a win over the Chiefs helps the Bills. And, when we do win week 17, maybe it is for the number 1 seed. So,
well, the one thing I've been trying to stress to Dolphin fans is even if they lose to the Chiefs, the season's not over with. They've got to win 2 out of their last 4 to have a near lock on a playoff spot. So if they lose to the Chiefs, it's not the end of the season. They can rebound, and if they win 2 out of their last 3, then they got a good chance getting it. All right, Justin, go ahead.
Let me just say, I resent the fact that I always go third when we do this takeaways, look ahead thing, because I'm always left picking up your 2 table scraps.
All right,
okay?
Next week you go first. I promise.
Well, I'm always going like, oh, hey, well, just to piggyback off what Robert said or what Chris said. Oh, okay. But anyway, I too am going to shout out the top 2 quarterbacks from the 2005 draft class. First, Alex Smith is and I've said this all season, the fact that even when he showed up to training camp, he is the slam dunk choice for comeback player of the year. I know there's been some arguments online and the betting markets, how they view this comeback player of the year award. I think it's too often viewed as strictly a player was mistimed the previous season and they came back and compiled stats. And I think people need to look at this award through more of a lens of which player had to overcome the most to contribute to their team in any significant fashion. I'm not going to sit here and argue that Alex Smith is a better player right now than Ben Roethlisberger, who I think has his own compelling case for this award. And I think any other year he probably wins it in the landslide. Big Ben came back from a pretty serious elbow injury. There was no guarantee he was going to play football or play quarterback effectively ever again. And he came back and he's having a solid year. I wouldn't go as far to say he's an MVP candidate like some people were saying on this show. But Alex Smith overcame not only, I think, what most people would have said, likely the end of his football career, but actual changes to his everyday life. A concern over losing his leg, a concern over losing his life, a concern over even being able to walk normal again. And here he is playing quarterback for a team that, yes, they're 5-7. In most cases, they would not be a playoff team. And here they are fighting for a playoff spot. Alex Smith has overcome a whole heck of a lot more than a lot of people that come up for this category. I mean, last season, Ryan Tannehill won, and he came back from his own bad quarterback play. So that just kind of tells you how people look at this award through, I think, the incorrect lens. So shout out to Alex Smith. As far as the other guy, the future Hall of Famer, Aaron Rodgers. First player ever to throw for 35 or more touchdowns 5 times. Fastest player, as Robert mentioned, to 400 touchdowns. Only, I think, the 7th guy to ever do that. If he wins MVP this year, which I agree he should be the front runner at this point, he'll be only the 6th player ever to win 3 MVP awards. Listen, and again, I'm not going to mention any names. You two can figure out who I'm alluding to, but someone on this program said that Aaron Rodgers was not a top 10 quarterback of all time. And yet here he is throwing touchdowns at a rate that we've never seen before. He's got the accolades. He has the winning pedigree. Someone decided Drew Brees was better. Someone decided Dan Marino was better. I don't know who those people are. I don't know what they're looking at. But, in fairness to Chris, it's hard to judge Rodgers versus Marino or Rodgers versus Joe Montana because they did play in different eras. I'm not going to sit here and say it's harder to throw touchdown passes today than it was 30, 40 years ago. Playing quarterback was way harder in a lot of ways back then when Marino, Montana, etc. played than it is now. That said, you can compare Rodgers to his contemporaries of today. And he has played in a pretty damn good era of quarterbacks. And he's doing things that Peyton Manning and Drew Brees and Tom Brady never did. So shout out to him. I hope he remains in a Green Bay Packers uniform for a long time. I do think he's underappreciated, and I'm glad to see that he's back to his ass-kicking ways that admittedly have not been around the last couple of years. As far as what I'm looking forward to in the coming weeks, this is a really tricky situation with Carson Wentz with the Eagles. I don't want to give up on the guy, but watching Sunday and watching really all season, he is not the same quarterback that was leading the Eagles to the playoffs in years past. And for my money, should have been MVP in 2017 before he tore his ACL. It's not a case of his talent is gone. He is still a talented quarterback. But with some of these quarterbacks who like to scramble around, like they like to play backyard football, I think they need a reset. This happened with Brett Favre. This happened with Aaron Rodgers, where they just don't play within structure. They don't play within the confines of the play. And that's where Wentz is right now. He needs a new coach to come in and reset his brain. I think I have a hard time based on the amount of money that the Eagles owe him that they will move on from him. There's really no incentive to do so aside from we want to give Carson a fresh start. But if they do that, they kind of really don't have a game plan for quarterback. Like Jalen Hurts is not going to be the future at that position for the Eagles. He's a second-round pick. He was a mediocre college player up until his final season. He's not the answer there. I think the Eagles would be better served holding on to Wentz, maybe getting a new coach in there to really get him back to what he does best and get that supporting cast around him a little better. But hey, tough situation for him. I hope he rebounds because he's an exciting quarterback.
All right, our last topic, and we're going to change sports now. Today is, I guess, the day that we knew was coming. Minor League Baseball, dramatic changes. It feels like a reality show almost, because I saw these tweets from different organizations saying that we invite this team to be part of our organization. And so everything really became official today of the 109. I guess there's 119 teams that were offered invitations. Obviously, a lot of these teams, no surprises. We knew a lot of the teams that were going to be, parts of major league organizations going forward, like Rochester with the Nationals, and of course Syracuse is owned by the Mets. That's not much of a surprise. But here it is. Today was the day. I did see one minor league team. I can't remember. I think it was in Iowa. They were a Marlins farm team. They got dumped, and they didn't get any word from the Marlins that they were no longer a farm team. So some of this, I think, was done unprofessionally. Trenton obviously got dumped by the Yankees. Staten Island got dumped by the Yankees. They never got any official word from the team that they were no longer minor league affiliates. So some of this is being done in an unprofessional way, which is kind of sad because some of these cities have had minor league baseball for decades. And obviously in Auburn, we've discussed this many, many a time. I've written many columns. Justin's written a lot about it, is that this is the end of the New York Penn League. It is the end of professional baseball as we've known it in Auburn since 1958. And it's history now. And it's sad to see that this day has finally come, as we've been expecting for the last almost 14 months. But here it is, and it's happened, and professional baseball is basically done in the city of Auburn. There could be some type of incarnation next year or another year that it won't be the same. We will not be affiliated with a major league team anymore. And it's the end of an era, and it's sad. And it's the realism of professional baseball and realization that Auburn, unfortunately, does not have the population or the resources to support a minor league team properly. And that's one of the major reasons why this happens. So, Justin, since you covered the team the last few years, I'll let you go next, and your thoughts about everything going on with baseball today.
Well, I mean, obviously, Major League Baseball and minor league baseball are switching away from a system that includes, short season teams. And if you are not a team that can make a full season model viable, you're not going to have minor league baseball anymore. And that's the status with Auburn, setting aside the obvious, which is, attendance issues and the size of the town and all that kind of stuff. But there's not going to be short season baseball anymore for teams that want to be associated with, a major league team. I do think the most disappointing part is just the fashion in which all this news has been coming out, and minor league teams have found out whether or not, as Chris, as you just said, whether or not they're going to have affiliations moving forward. Like this, as I wrote in one of my stories last week, the Staten Island Yankees released a statement saying, when we became an organization, our sole purpose was to be the entry point to professional baseball for New York Yankees prospects. That is why they existed. And now that they're no longer affiliated with the Yankees, it's like, well, you kind of lose your purpose a little bit. And for the Yankees, along with a lot of other teams that did the same thing to their respective affiliates, to have to find this out on social media is not the right way to go about it. And the Staten Island Yankees are not alone in that respect. But I also, I want to say on the flip side, and I tweeted this to Robert, Robert pointed out that the Nationals, who have been the Doubledays affiliate since 2011, that in their press release announcing their new affiliations, that there was no word of Auburn whatsoever, despite the fact that they've had this 9-year partnership. And affiliates that the Nationals have had a shorter partnership with did get a shout out. So the Nationals, it's a shame that they couldn't even acknowledge Auburn. But I also want to say some of these minor league teams like Auburn, like Batavia, and really like the New York Penn League as a whole, the fact that we haven't heard squat as far as a public statement from some of these minor league teams that aren't going to exist anymore, I think that's sad too. Like if the Double Days, which I think they've, the writing's been on the wall for a long time that this was going to be the end of that team. It's been trending this way for years and years and years. We've reported on it. We've all written about it. The fact that we can't even get a public statement from the Double Days thanking the city of Auburn, thanking the fans in Auburn for decades and decades of coming out to the ballpark and watching baseball and contributing revenue to the city of Auburn, which, based on the business format that team has, that's what happens when people come to the ballpark. That money goes to the city, essentially. That's disappointing to me. I think that an acknowledgement to the fans is necessary. And I'm not sure, aside from whatever statements get made to me through my reporting, I'm not sure that there's going to be any kind of statement from the Double Days in that fashion. And that's sad to me as well.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Justin. And, having been around people like Leo Pinckney, who was the president of the New York Penn League in the 80s and early 90s, and, someone who basically, it was his life's work was this league and this team in this city, to see it basically go so quietly without a statement or anything is just really sad. I mean, the fact that the New York Penn League has not, to my knowledge, has not put out a statement. I know Tri-City did have a statement earlier today. The team that was the Astros affiliate. And
let me just interject, Chris. Every New York Penn League team that no longer is going to have an affiliate, right. Every team except for the Double Days and the Muck Dogs released some kind of statement, whether it be today or in the last couple weeks, expressing some kind of remorse or disappointment that professional baseball won't be around in 2021. So it's really just the Double Days and the Muck Dogs that are going quietly into the night, so to speak.
All right. Robert.
Yeah, I wanted to make 3 points, and one is to piggyback on something that Justin mentioned, with the Nationals. It's not a secret on this video. For obviously you guys know this, and I'm sure the people that do watch us regularly, all 5 of them know that the Nationals are my favorite team, and it was tremendously disappointing to see that the Double Days didn't even get a mention. They did mention Hagerstown. Hagerstown was their single A, one of their single A teams, full season single A teams that they won't be continuing with beginning next year. And then Fresno, which was the AAA home for the Nationals the last couple seasons after they had to get out of Syracuse. But no mention of Auburn. I thought that was a disappointment because, they just won a World Series a year ago, and a handful of those guys, passed through Auburn. Juan Soto, who's easily their best player right now, position player anyway, he had some time here. Anthony Rendon had an injury stint here. He's now with Justin's Angels, but he was a key part of that 2019 World Series team. And then, there's some other guys that might not have as big of a name, but Victor Robles, who's an up-and-coming center fielder. He's a stud for them. He played here. Aaron Barrett, who's a good story. We talk about Alex Smith and his comeback from an injury. Aaron Barrett was, I think, I could be wrong, but I think he was the first Double Day who became a national, who made his MLB debut after the switch to that affiliation back in 2011. So disappointing to see that they didn't even get a sentence, let alone the longer thank yous that some of the other teams got. To Justin's point about the city, I in covering this a little bit, I did write a few stories on this at the end of last year. You saw what these other places were doing. I think of Binghamton near us. Binghamton really united and wanted to keep that team there. And not to say that that was the only reason that Binghamton is going to keep a team, but it certainly showed that there was a community support mechanism there, that Binghamton wanted a baseball team. And guess what? Binghamton will still have a minor league baseball team. You did not see that in Auburn. And I think that tells the story right there. Yes, we see it in attendance numbers and all this other stuff, but you also see it from the folks that run the team, which in this case is the city, that there just wasn't that, it seemed anyway, there wasn't that same level of engagement or effort really to say, we want a baseball team here. And there was really no public, there was no attempt to generate public support for that, and I know that there are people who feel passionately about the team. There are others who say, who cares? Didn't go to a game, whatever. But there's certainly a lot of supporters out there. The last point I'll make about, just what this does for, minor league baseball and MLB, look, this all comes down to money. The MLB was facing pressure because they weren't paying minor league baseball players a fair wage, and they can come up with all these excuses for why they're restructuring the minor league system. Oh, it's about amenities, it's about the facilities, all this other stuff. Yeah. I mean, the list goes on. There's a whole list of reasons that they've offered, which no one should buy, because it really comes down to money. And if they pay the players more, that means that there's a reason that they're scaling back. There's a reason why these teams are coming out now and saying, here are our 4 minor league baseball teams, as opposed to the 6 or 7 that they had before. It all comes down to money. So I think it's unfortunate that a lot of these places, Auburn was kind of on the cliff anyway, I know, but you look at some of these other places that are losing teams, and they're real head scratchers. And it's real unfortunate that that they're going to lose them. Tri-City is a great example in the New York Penn League, because that team, I think they had a decent level of support, from their community, but they also produced some great teams in the Astros organization, pre-trash can days. So, it's it's disappointing to see how this is going to reshape minor league baseball, because I think about my own interactions with professional baseball. The very first pro game I went to was a AAA baseball game in Buffalo, and Buffalo is going to keep their team. Obviously, that was never in doubt. But I did go to some Muck Dogs games growing up. I grew up about 30 minutes from Batavia. That's the only reason I knew that Auburn existed before I applied for a job here. And it's sad to see what's happened with that team over the years, but it's especially sad to see us reach this day where it's, really the official point where you realize that professional baseball in places like Auburn and Batavia won't continue. And, I think it does say something about the economics outside of baseball, but I also think it obviously says a lot about the economics in baseball. And it all comes down to, the paying the players more, and, the realities with professional sports today. And it's unfortunate that places like Auburn and Batavia will lose that history, lose that piece of their community because of this.
Yeah, no, it's a really sad day. And I there's so many people I'm thinking about right now, because, I went to my first games late 70s, early 80s when I was a kid, and I covered the team for 5 years in the 90s. And, I spent a lot of time at the old ballpark, the new ballpark. And it's just sad that, like I said, even if there is another team there next year, it will not be professional baseball. It will not be affiliated with a major league team. And, it's just, like you said, Robert, it's just a way of Major League Baseball trying to save money. It's all about money. And I understand, for some, cities like Auburn and Batavia, the attendance was down and it wasn't, support wasn't there that it used to be. But there are 41 cities right now, or 40 cities that are losing professional baseball. And some of them don't deserve that. And that's what's really wrong about this. So, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. I just want to say thanks to everybody who tuned in and stuck with us. And we appreciate your support. And we'll see you next week.